If you're listening to this and everything in you is saying, I should be able to just push through today, let's pause right there. Because for a lot of us, especially right now with all the things going on in the world and yesterday in my state, pushing through isn't strength. It's a reflex we've learned to survive. When something violent or unjust happens close to home, your nervous system doesn't experience it as news. It experiences it as threat. And yet, so many women, especially those of us with ADHD, immediately turn that into pressure to keep functioning like nothing happened. This episode is not about motivation, it's not about productivity, and it's definitely not about bypassing what your body already knows. Today, we're talking about how to move through days like this without collapsing and without forcing yourself to perform like normal for you when nothing feels normal. If you've ever wondered why just pushing through makes things worse and what actually helps instead, stay with me. Welcome to the Self Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. Today is the day after the tragic death of Renee Good in Minneapolis. And so I understand that you're watching this a week after it happened, but it happened yesterday for me as I share this. And I wanted to take this opportunity to share what we do when this kind of stuff happens, how we be when this kind of stuff happens. Because a lot of times, like this morning, I woke up with my normal things I need to get done on Thursdays. Thursdays are a huge recording day for me and an editing day. It's a big work day. And I woke up and was not feeling it. So I want to talk about what we do on these kind of days. And yeah, sure, today it's the shooting in Minneapolis. Next week, it might be something else. And so this isn't just an episode for what's today, January 8th in Minnesota. It's an episode for when tough things happen in the world. So if, like me, you woke up today and just feeling like I can't, or a heaviness, I get it. And maybe you woke up completely disconnected from it and maybe even numb, because we've been going through this for years now in our country. And I understand that sometimes our nervous systems might completely shut us down, numb us out to keep us safe. Some of you may have so much on your plate that you're like, I can't even worry about that right now. And yet, if you're anything like me and you're highly justice sensitive, which is more common with ADHD, there's actually studies that show that, you might be feeling a lot of different things right now. That might be sadness, grief, anger, rage, disappointment, discouragement, despair. I think I said sadness. I don't know if I did. You might be having any other kind of feeling experience. And our tendency in this world nowadays, in this time that we're living in, is to push all that aside and just do what we're here to do, to just function. And I noticed that pull this morning, and yet my body was like, yeah, right, lady. And so I want to talk about that because number one, we are more justice sensitive with ADHD. Some of that is because we know what it is to feel injustice. We know what it's like to be in trouble for how our brain is, or to have to fight really hard to not be in trouble for how our brain is, or feel bad after we said something, or experience rejection sensitivity, right? With RSD. We know that, and we also tend to feel things very deeply. Most ADHD women tend to be big feelers. We tend to be highly sensitive unless you learned how to numb all that out and just disconnect from it or compartmentalize in some way. But the reality is, what's true for a lot of us is these big events trigger our nervous system. In fact, I even had clients in my office yesterday saying things like, "This morning I felt off and I didn't know why until I just checked the news." What happens to one of us in the world happens to all of us, and our bodies know. We can feel it. And those of us who are ADHD tend to feel things deeply, but many of us women are more connected to our intuition. So you might have that sense. And I'm not saying that's always accurate. I'm not saying that we're 100% at it unless you're practiced at being psychic or connected with your intuitive abilities. But sometimes we do feel that, and it can feel heavy. And I want to create a space where we can be honest about that. This morning, I had a call with a person who is the lead researcher on a project I'm working on to help research ADHD and trauma, which I'm really excited. So we're starting it. It'll be exciting when it happens. But I got on the call and he asked how I was, and I was just honest. I said heavy. I feel heavy. I feel distracted. I feel lots of feelings. And, granted, he's a researcher right now, but he's also in a clinical program alongside his research program. And he said, let's normalize that for people. And that's what I want to do today. Whatever you're feeling. And maybe you're like, I'm fine. I don't even, this doesn't impact me. I mean, that's a different story. And I'm not going to get into that today. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. But if you're not really feeling much about it or feeling numb, that's a common experience. The important thing is that we normalize getting to have these feelings instead of just going on with life as usual. Because what we don't make space for will come back in our body later. It's so true. And maybe we won't see it immediately in our body, but maybe we'll see it in another learning opportunity that presents itself. So when we have these opportunities to work through our feelings and what is coming up for us, it's important we see them as that, opportunities to connect with our inner experience of this world that we have chosen to be in at this time in history. Although maybe you don't believe that you chose to be here. That's a whole, again, another conversation. But you're here at this time in history. And so it's like, let's work with it. So what do we do? Well, first of all, I want to name yesterday when it happened, I was at work and my two office mates are social workers. So we talked about it at lunch. We expressed our feelings and mostly rage at that point, and just talked about it. And then my afternoon sessions yesterday were just being with clients and their feelings. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. But if you don't know how to do that safely, I highly recommend you find someone with whom you can experience the feelings that are coming up for you. One of my clients felt completely numb, and we were just with that. But another was feeling just like she wanted to get away or hide or run. And so we just sat with that and invited her to be in a posture with her body that mirrored the feelings that were coming up for her. And as we did that, as we just held the space in session for her to be with the feelings, she started to feel better. Not about what had happened, but the feelings were no longer flooding her and overtaking her life. It opened her up in a way that she could then access whatever coping skills or advocacy skills or action-taking skills that she needed to access. So I invite you to do the same. Whether this is January 2026 and you are responding to what happened in Minneapolis yesterday with the ICE shooting, or it's something else. If you feel safe enough to do so, maybe be with whatever that feeling is. Maybe it's some kind of posture of some kind that is coming up for you. And if it feels safe enough for you, you might embody that and you might be with it while you breathe, maybe right now. And let yourself breathe into the space. maybe holding that for a minute or so. And if you're alone doing this, not listening to this episode, you can always set a timer. And then shifting in to notice if there are emotions, feelings of some kind that go with that posture, or maybe there's an image, or maybe words, and perhaps shifting to attend to that. You might even write for a bit, or do an audio note if you're not a writer, or talk to a friend. But finding a way to hold space for what's coming up in you. That is how we work through and with our feelings. And if you feel like you get flooded, if you've got a trauma history, I highly recommend doing this with a therapist. But if you don't, I mean, a lot of us have trauma histories at this point in time, which is, again, a whole nother thing as to why I think the world looks like what it looks like now. There's a lot of people are reenacting trauma from generations and epigenetic trauma and trauma from this lifetime. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But if you have trauma that is feeling overwhelming to you, I strongly recommend you do this work with a professional so that you're not alone with your feelings unless you are used to connecting with your feelings. And if you are okay with being with your feelings, let yourself do that. Let yourself write. Be with it, feel it, make it okay. Maybe even when someone asks how you are today, say what that is. I said heavy and overloaded with so many feelings that I don't even know if I could name them all. Let's normalize that, because then we can hold space for each other. When we do that, when we work through the feelings, then we can feel ready to take some kind of action to fight the injustice. And why would we want to do that? Well, I mean, some of it is to support other people who are experiencing greater injustices than ourselves. And if you don't care about that, recognizing that whole quote that's like, first they came for this group and I did nothing. Then they came for this group and I did nothing. And then they came for me and there was no one left to fight. Right? So even if it's just for that, it's important to take action, but also it's important to take action because when we are doing something, it helps with our ability to cope with the present moment, with what's happening in our world, in our country, and today in Minnesota. And you might wonder what kind of action to take. So personally, I am someone who writes letters to and or calls my representatives. So yesterday, as soon as I found out about the shooting, I used ResistBot, which you can look online for ResistBot. I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can use ResistBot to write your representatives. I just recommend maybe not writing the administration because you don't want to get on a list that you don't want to be on. Just a thought, your call, your call. But I use ResistBot, and what you do is you type the word resist to the number 50409. I believe it's 50409. I'll put it in the show notes. You type the word resist. And from there, you can sign an existing petition or something going around, or you can click write. And then you can write what you want to write. And then it will say, who are you targeting this to? Or maybe that comes first. And you click it and it will let you pick your representatives. And I think it bases it on your current location, unless maybe you put in other details online or something like that. But at any rate, it will then use your text messages to compose a message to your representatives, whichever ones you choose to send it to. So I used that today to send it to my 2 senators and my 1 House representative, as well as I used that yesterday, rather, I should say, to send it to them, as well as to my governor in Minnesota, Governor Walz. Today, this morning, I contacted the Hennepin County Attorney's Office requesting that they file charges as soon as they were able to against the ICE agents. But then when I saw that the BCA was cut out of it and the federal government said, no, we're the only ones handling it, then I called the Minnesota State Attorney General, who is Keith Ellison, and just said like, hey, I would like to just have it be known that I would like him to fight to have this case. So those are some steps that you can take. And I'm going to tell you, when I contacted the Hennepin County Attorney's Office this morning, the woman, I was like, is this the right place to call to advocate for this? And she was like, absolutely. And she said, I've been fielding calls from all over the country, which was hopeful, but also you don't have to live in Minnesota to call. Although at this point, because the investigation has been taken out of the hands of Minnesota, and the people in Minnesota don't have access to the evidence or case documents, right now, the Attorney General and our governor, Governor Walz, as well as your representatives in the House of Representatives and Congress, or the Senate, rather, those are the same, are the right people to call. So call your Congress people, and you can call your governor or my governor, either way. There's a great way to do that. And I'll put that in the show notes as well if you are wanting to take action. I'm not going to tell you what to think about the situation. That's up to you. But if you're wanting to take action against this, I want to show you how, because at my roots, I'm a social worker. And I don't know if you know this about social workers, but our roots go back to Dorothy Day and the Hud Houses of Chicago. Our roots are in fighting for social justice, and our code of ethics says that we will fight for the rights of all people. And so that's what I believe this is about. And that's why I chose to take the time today, not just to advocate for social justice, but also to help you work through the feelings and find ways to help yourself. One of the ways we can help ourselves is by speaking out against causes that are important to us and by helping others. I hope this was helpful to you in some way. Oh, I forgot to mention the other resource I use a lot is called 5 Calls. It's an app, and they give you what's going on with a particular issue, and they give you a script. I will say that one is very left-leaning, and I'm okay with it because I'm very left-leaning myself. But you may, you can adjust the script in whatever way works for you. Actually, when I say very left-leaning, I should say very left-leaning for the current times. It's probably closer to what left-leaning was when I was a child. So there's that. Anyway. All right. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you found this episode supportive, and I hope that you understand that this episode was me modeling what we need to do. Instead of coming to you with this big topic about ADHD or something like that, I'm honoring the space I'm in today. I'm doing what I can do today, which is supporting you with any big feelings you might have coming up right now, instead of pushing to create this amazing episode that has all this data and information and whatever. So I hope you feel held. I hope you feel supported in doing what you need to do for yourself today and always. Thank you so much for listening, or if you're on YouTube, for watching. If you're not following or subscribed to the podcast already, I would love it if you did that, and take good care.